The morning sun rose over the village of Ogunlad, painting the market square in golden light. Prince Kaito walked through the crowd like a storm, his silk robes flowing behind him. Vendors bowed low as he passed, their eyes fixed on the ground. At the yam stall, a frail old woman bent over her basket of herbs. Her wrinkled hands trembled as she arranged them carefully. She wore tattered clothes that had seen too many seasons. The prince strutted forward, lost in his own glory. The old woman's basket brushed against his royal robe, leaving a tiny smudge of dirt. Kaito's face twisted with rage. He grabbed the basket and hurled it to the ground. Herbs scattered everywhere like broken dreams. "You worthless creature!" he shouted. "How dare you touch royalty with your filthy hands?" The entire market fell silent. Even the birds stopped singing. A young servant girl named Layo rushed forward. She knelt beside the old woman, helping gather the scattered herbs. Her heart ached with shame for her prince. Kaito laughed cruelly. "Look, the beggar girl befriends the beggar woman." But then the old woman's eyes flashed with an unnatural light. She whispered, "Pride will crumble." The crowd gasped in fear. Layo's hands shook as she picked up the last herb. The old woman smiled at her gently, but her eyes held secrets deeper than the ancient forest. "Thank you, child," the woman whispered, touching Layo's cheek with surprising warmth. As Layo stood, the market exploded with whispers. Old Mama Kimmy grabbed her grandson's hand and pulled him away. "That girl has invited trouble," she hissed. The yam seller pointed at Layo with disgust. She should know better than to interfere with the prince's judgment. Even kind Baba Tunde, who usually gave Layo leftover corn, turned his back. "Girl, you have brought misfortune upon yourself." Layo felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She looked around for the old woman to walk her home, but the woman had vanished. Completely vanished. Layo searched between the stalls, behind the cloth displays, everywhere. Nothing. And stranger still, when she looked at the dusty ground where the woman had stood, there were no footprints. Not a single mark. The prince mounted his horse, chest puffed with pride. "I will not tolerate disrespect," he announced. He rode toward the palace, leaving chaos behind. The palace gates opened with a heavy groan as Prince Kaito entered. Guards stood at attention, but their eyes showed concern, not respect. Inside the throne room, King Adekure sat with his crown weighing heavy on his gray hair. His face was stern as his son approached. "Kaito, the entire village speaks of your cruelty today." The prince waved his hand dismissively. "A dirty old woman touched my robe, father. I simply put her in her place." "That old woman is still someone's mother." King Adekunle slammed his staff against the floor. "You will be king someday. Kings must have compassion, not just power." Queen Amara stepped forward from the shadows, her jewelry clinking softly. "My son, your grandmother once told me, arrogance invites spiritual consequences. The ancestors are always watching." Kaito rolled his eyes. "Superstitious nonsense, mother." Just then, a palace guard burst through the doors, his face pale with fear. "Your Majesty, something strange has appeared at the palace gates. A symbol, glowing on the earth itself. None of us recognized it, and it appeared from nowhere." The king and queen exchanged worried glances. Kaito felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Layo trudged back to her tiny hut on the edge of the village. The walls were cracked, the roof leaked when it rained, but it was home. She collapsed on her sleeping mat and finally let the tears flow. They came hot and bitter, soaking the thin cloth beneath her face. "Why did I help her?" she whispered to the darkness. "Now everyone hates me." For 3 years since her parents died from the fever, Layo had worked at the market. She swept stalls, carried water, did whatever people needed. The villagers had been kind enough, giving her scraps of food and small coins. Now that kindness had vanished like smoke. She thought about tomorrow. Would anyone let her work? Would the children throw stones at her? Would the elders curse her for bringing bad spirits? Her stomach growled with hunger. She had not eaten since dawn. As darkness swallowed the village, Layo closed her eyes and prayed to her ancestors for guidance. Then she heard it. Knock, knock, knock. Soft, old, and deliberate. Her heart hammered in her chest. Nobody visited her, especially at night. She crept to the door, hands trembling. "Who's there?" she called out weakly. Silence. Then, knock, knock, knock. Layo slowly opened the door and gasped. The old woman from the market stood before her, but now she glowed with a soft, silvery light. Her eyes shimmered like stars reflected in deep water. Layo stumbled backward. How did you find me?" The woman stepped inside without invitation, and the hut seemed brighter with her presence. She smelled of earth after rain and ancient trees. "Child," her voice was gentle but powerful. "You stood for kindness when everyone else stood for cruelty. Destiny has seen you." Layo's mouth opened, but no words came out. The old woman reached into her tattered clothes and pulled out a wooden pendant. It was carved with intricate symbols that seemed to move in the flickering lamplight. The pendant felt warm, alive somehow. "This belonged to your bloodline," the woman said, pressing it into Layo's palm. "Wear it always. It will awaken when the time is right." "My bloodline? But I'm just an orphan. I have no family, no—" "You have more than you know," the woman interrupted, her eyes twinkling with secrets. "The proud will fall by their own hands, but the meek will rise by unseen winds." Before Layo could ask what she meant, the old woman turned toward the door. "Wait, what's your name? Why are you helping me?" But the woman dissolved into smoke, leaving only the scent of ancient forests behind. Morning came too quickly. Layo awoke with the pendant still clutched in her hand, wondering if she had dreamed everything. But the pendant was real. Its carving seemed to pulse with life. She hid it under her worn dress and headed to the market, hoping yesterday's shame had been forgotten. She was wrong. As soon as she appeared, Mama Kemi spat on the ground. "The witch girl returns." "She brings evil spirits," a cloth seller shouted. Even the children she once played with threw stones at her feet. "Witch, witch," they chanted. Layo ran from stall to stall, begging for work. "Please, I need to eat. I'll sweep. I'll carry anything." Old Baba Tunde, who had always been kind, looked at her with sad eyes. "Child, I cannot risk my family's safety. The elders say you have been touched by dark magic. But I just helped an old woman." "That's exactly the problem," he whispered. "That old woman was no ordinary person. Now leave before people see me talking to you." Layo stumbled away, tears blurring her vision. Then she felt it. The pendant, hidden against her chest, began to glow warm, then warmer, then hot. She looked down and gasped. Through her dress, she could see it pulsing with light like a heartbeat.
Panic seized Layo's heart. The pendant burned brighter with each passing second. She ran from the market, ignoring the shocked stares and pointing fingers. "The witch glows!" someone screamed behind her. She ran past the last huts of the village, past the farms, toward the one place nobody dared to go, the sacred forest of spirits. "Girls, stop!" an elder shouted. "That forest is forbidden. The ancestors dwell there." But Layo couldn't stop. The pendant pulled her forward like an invisible rope. Her feet moved on their own, faster and faster, until the massive ancient trees swallowed her whole. The forest was darker than midnight, even in daylight. Vines hung like curtains. Strange bird calls echoed from unseen branches. The air smelled of damp earth and mystery. Layo slowed down, breathing hard. The pendant's glow dimmed slightly, but continued pulsing. Then she heard it. Whispers. Dozens of voices speaking her name from every direction. "Layo, Layo, Layo." She spun around but saw nothing except shadows and twisted roots. "Who's there?" Her voice cracked with fear. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around her like invisible hands. Then the ground beneath her feet began to tremble. Crack! The earth split open, and Layo fell into darkness, screaming. Layo crashed onto something hard but smooth. Her head spun as she opened her eyes and gasped. She had fallen into an underground chamber carved entirely from black stone. But it wasn't dark. The walls glowed with thousands of carved symbols identical to those on her pendant. They pulsed with golden light, casting dancing shadows everywhere. In the center of the chamber stood a shrine. Offerings of ancient coins, dried flowers, and clay pots surrounded a tall stone pillar. "Where am I?" Layo whispered, her voice echoing strangely. "You are home, child of the forgotten line." Layo spun around. A figure emerged from the shadows, wearing a mask carved with fierce patterns. The figure was draped in cloth that seemed woven from spider silk in moonlight. "Who are you?" Layo heart hammered. "I am the keeper of lost truths," the masked spirit said. Its voice sounded like wind through hollow reeds. "For generations, I have waited. Your bloodline was erased from memory, but the ancestors do not forget." "My bloodline? I don't understand. I'm nobody. I'm just—" "You are born of the forgotten line," the spirit interrupted. "Greatness flows in your veins, hidden by time and betrayal." Layo shook her head. "That's impossible." The spirit pointed at her pendant. "That mark proves your heritage. It awakens only for true blood." Layo looked down. The pendant glowed brighter than ever. "Your suffering was the key to awakening," the spirit said softly. Days blurred together in the underground shrine. Layo lost count of time as the keeper taught her things she never imagined possible. "Close your eyes," the spirit instructed. "Feel the truth within people's hearts." Layo obeyed, breathing slowly. At first, she felt nothing. Then, like dawn breaking, she sensed something new, a tingling awareness spreading through her body. Images flooded her mind. She saw Prince Kaito surrounded by flickering dark shadows shaped like grasping hands. She saw villagers whose faces smiled but whose hearts held fear and jealousy. She saw the old woman transforming into pure light. "What is this?" Layo gasped, opening her eyes. "Inner sight," the keeper explained. "You now perceive what others hide. Arrogance, kindness, truth, lies, all will reveal themselves to you." Each day the training grew harder. The keeper made her stand for hours, sensing the forest creatures above. She learned to recognize the difference between genuine compassion and false friendship. One evening, during meditation, a new vision struck her with terrible force. She saw the Prince Kaito wearing a crown, but the crown was cracking. Pieces fell like rain. Behind him loomed a massive shadow shaped like a monster with his own face. Then she saw a symbol burning in the air, a crown shattering into dust. Layo jerked away, gasping. "What did you see?" the keeper asked, knowingly. "The prince, his crown, it breaks. The prophecy begins."
2 weeks had passed since Layo disappeared into the forest. The village buzzed with rumors. Some said she was dead. Others claimed she had become a forest spirit herself. But Layo was very much alive. She emerged from the forest at dawn wearing the same tattered dress, but something had changed in her eyes. They held quiet strength now, a depth that hadn't been there before. The pendant rested against her chest, hidden but warm. Today was the Grand Harvest Festival, the biggest celebration of the year. The entire kingdom gathered at the palace square for music, dancing, and the prince's speech. Layo stayed in the shadows, watching from behind a fruit stall. She wore a headscarf pulled low to hide her face. The square exploded with color. Drummers pounded complex rhythms. Dancers spun in bright clothes. The smell of roasted meat and spiced rice filled the air. Then the royal horns blew. Prince Kaito emerged onto the palace balcony, wearing gold from head to toe. The crowd cheered, though Layo's inner sight showed her their true feelings. Many smiled with their mouths, but frowned with their hearts. "My people," Kaito's voice boomed. "Soon I will be crowned king. And when I am, this kingdom will know true greatness, my greatness." The crowd cheered again, but Layo heard the keeper's words echoing. Pride destroys its owner. Then the prince made an announcement that froze her blood. "Today, I will parade through the market to demonstrate my generosity." The market square filled with anxious energy as Prince Kaito descended from his horse. Palace guards surrounded him like a wall of spears. Layo pressed herself against a cloth stall, trying to remain invisible. But fate had other plans. A small child chasing a chicken bumped into her, knocking her headscarf loose. "Look, it's the witch girl," someone shouted. The crowd parted like water as people backed away from her. Suddenly, Layo stood alone in a circle of staring faces. Prince Kaito's eyes locked onto her, and a cruel smile spread across his face. "Well, well," he said, walking toward her slowly. "The forest trash has returned. Did the spirits reject you too?" Laughter rippled through the crowd, though Layo's inner sight showed her many people felt uncomfortable. The prince circled her like a predator. "What's this?" He noticed the pendant hanging outside her dress now. Before Layo could move, he grabbed it, yanking her forward. "Stealing jewelry now? Is that how you survive?" "It's mine," Layo said quietly, her new training keeping her voice steady. "It was given to me." "By whom? The forest demons?" More laughter. Kaito pulled harder on the pendant, trying to rip it from her neck. Then it happened. The pendant exploded with brilliant light, so bright that people shielded their eyes. Kaito screamed and released it, stumbling backward. His palm bore a strange burning mark, the same symbol from the palace gates. The crowd gasped in horror. Prince Kaito clutched his hand against his chest, his face twisted with shock and pain. The mark on his palm glowed red like a fresh brand. "Witchcraft!" he shouted, pointing at Layo with the other hand. "She has cursed me!" Guards moved toward Layo, but she slipped through the panicked crowd like water through fingers. Her training in the forest made her movements swift and precise. "Find her!" Kaito screamed, but Layo had already vanished into an alley. The prince mounted his horse and raced back to the palace, his burned hand throbbing with each heartbeat. He kept it hidden beneath his cloak, but the pain grew worse with each passing moment. Inside his private chambers, he finally examined the mark. The symbol was complex and ancient, burned deep into his skin. He had never seen anything like it. "It's nothing," he told himself. "Just a burn. It will heal." He called for the palace healer, an old man who had served 3 generations of kings. The healer examined the mark carefully, his expression growing more troubled with each second. "Well," Kaito demanded, "can you heal it?" The old man stepped back. "Your Highness, this is not a normal wound. This is a spiritual mark. I have only seen such things in ancient texts about divine punishment." "Nonsense!" Kaito shouted. "Give me ointment, herbs, something." The healer bowed and left, but Kaito saw fear in his eyes. That night, as the prince lay in bed, he felt a strange sensation in his arm. He threw off the covers and gasped. The mark had spread. It now covered his entire palm and was creeping up his wrist like a dark vine. Sleep became impossible for Prince Kaito. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the old woman's face, her eyes flashing with that unnatural light. 3 nights after the market incident, Kaito stood before his massive bronze mirror, admiring his reflection as he always did. But something was wrong. His reflection didn't move exactly as he moved. He raised his right hand. His reflection raised its left. "What?" he whispered. Then his reflection smiled, but Kaito hadn't smiled. Horror flooded through him as his reflection began to change. The face in the mirror twisted into something cruel and monstrous. The eyes turned black as coal. The smile stretched impossibly wide, showing too many teeth. "No!" Kaito stumbled backward. The reflection laughed, and the sound seemed to come from everywhere. Crack! The mirror split down the middle. He ran to another mirror in his chamber. This one showed the same thing, a distorted, evil version of himself. Crack! 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 One by one, every mirror in his room shattered, leaving spider webs of broken glass. The prince collapsed to his knees, breathing hard. The mark on his arm burned like fire now, spreading past his elbow. Then he heard it. A voice, soft and ancient, whispered from behind him. "You were warned." He spun around, but the room was empty. Outside his window, storm clouds gathered despite the season being dry. Deep in the sacred forest, Layo awoke from sleep in the underground shrine, knowing something had shifted in the spiritual realm. Layo sat up on her sleeping mat, her heart racing. The pendant around her neck vibrated softly, responding to something unseen. "Rest, child," the keeper's voice echoed through the shrine. "Your body needs sleep." But sleep wouldn't come. Layo closed her eyes and found herself pulled into a dream that felt more real than waking life. She stood in a vast space filled with white mist. The old woman from the market appeared, but now she radiated pure light. Her tattered clothes had transformed into robes woven from starlight. "Do you know who I am, child?" the woman asked. "You're the one I helped at the market." "I am much more." The woman's form shifted, growing taller, more magnificent. "I am Oya, the keeper of winds, guardian of truth, protector of the humble. I walk among mortals to test their hearts." Layo fell to her knees in awe. "Rise," Oya commanded gently. "You passed my test. Your kindness in the face of cruelty marked you as worthy. The goddess pointed towards something in the mist. A vision appeared. The palace, glowing golden in sunlight. Justice begins with courage, Oya said. Soon you must return there. Your destiny awaits. But I'm nobody, Layo protested. What can I do against a prince? Oya smiled mysteriously. You are not nobody. You are. A loud crash interrupted the dream. Layo jolted awake to find the keeper standing at the shrine entrance. Someone approaches, the spirit whispered. Real footsteps in the living world. They both heard it, the sound of boots on forest leaves coming closer.
In the palace, King Adekunle couldn't sleep either. He sat in the private royal library, surrounded by dusty scrolls and ancient texts. Queen Amara entered quietly, her sleeping robe trailing behind her. "You're researching it, aren't you?" she asked. "The old curse." The king nodded grimly. "I found it, the prophecy of shattered pride." He unrolled a brittle scroll covered in faded ink. It speaks of a mark that appears when a royal-blooded heir embraces arrogance and cruelty. The mark spreads until it consumes them completely. "Can it be stopped?" The queen's voice trembled. "Only through genuine humility and acknowledgement of wrongdoing." The king looked up at his wife with haunted eyes. But there's more. The prophecy mentions another bloodline, one that was wrongfully erased from the kingdom's history. It says this bloodline will rise again when the current line falls into corruption. Queen Amara's hand flew to her mouth. "The stories of your grandfather's betrayal?" Before the king could answer, a guard burst through the library doors, his face pale. "Your Majesties, forgive the intrusion, but Prince Kaito, he's destroying his chambers. We hear him screaming, but when we try to enter, the door burns our hands, and strange lights flash beneath the door." The king and queen exchanged terrified glances. "Call the priests," King Adekunle ordered. "Call every spiritual leader in the kingdom, now." They ran toward their son's chambers, their hearts filled with dread. Prince Kaito had lost his mind. He tore through his chambers like a wild animal, throwing furniture against walls, ripping tapestries, smashing pottery. "Get out of my head!" he screamed at invisible tormentors. "Leave me alone!" The mark now covered his entire right arm and had begun creeping across his chest. It burned constantly, a pain that no medicine could touch. He grabbed a guard who dared to peek inside. "Someone has cursed me. Find the witch girl. Bring her to me." "Your Highness, we've searched everywhere." Kaito threw him against the wall. "Then search harder." His paranoia grew with each passing hour. He saw accusation in every servant's eyes. He heard whispers of betrayal in every conversation. When his parents tried to speak with him, he locked his doors and shouted, "You planned this. You want me to fail so you can give the throne to someone else." "Son, please," the king begged from outside, "let us help you." "I don't need help." Kaito's voice cracked with hysteria. "I need that forest witch destroyed." That night, as the moon hung full and red, Kaito made a decision that would seal his fate. He gathered 50 guards and ordered them to prepare torches. "Your Highness, where are we going?" a captain asked nervously. Kaito's eyes gleamed with madness. "To the sacred forest. We're going to burn it to the ground and smoke out the witch who cursed me. If I must destroy every tree to find her, then let the forest burn." The guards exchanged worried glances but dared not disobey. Dawn broke with the smell of smoke. Layo stood at the edge of the sacred forest, her heart pounding. The keeper had sent her a vision. Soldiers were coming with fire. Behind her, the ancient trees whispered warnings. Birds fled in great flocks. Even the insects seemed to vanish, sensing the approaching danger. Then she saw them. Prince Kaito led 50 armed guards carrying blazing torches. The mark on his arm had spread to his neck now, visible even from a distance like dark lightning across his skin. "There she is," Kaito pointed with his marked arm. "The witch who cursed me!" The guards stopped several feet away, clearly afraid of entering the sacred boundary. But the prince had no such fear anymore. Madness had consumed caution. "This ends now," he shouted, raising a torch. "I'll burn you and your demon forest together." Layo stepped forward, her pendant glowing bright against her chest. Her voice came out stronger than she expected. "Stop, Kaito. You don't know what you're doing." "Don't speak my name, you filthy curse maker!" He took another step forward. Then Layo did something that shocked everyone, including herself. She raised her hand, and the pendant's light exploded outward in a shield of pure brilliance. The light hit the ground between them. Crack! The earth split open, revealing ancient symbols carved into the bedrock below. The same symbols as the mark on Kaito's arm and the pendant around Layo's neck. The guards screamed and ran backward, but Prince Kaito stood frozen, staring at the glowing symbols with wide, terrified eyes. The symbols blazed brighter and brighter until reality itself seemed to tear open. Layo felt herself being pulled forward, and Kaito was pulled from his side. They both tumbled into the crack. The guards shouted and reached for their prince, but it was too late. The earth swallowed them both and sealed shut again, as if nothing had happened. Layo found herself floating in a vast space filled with swirling mist and starlight. Kaito was floating across from her, thrashing wildly. "Where are we?" he screamed. "What have you done?" A powerful voice boomed from everywhere at once. "You stand in the realm of truth, where all must face themselves." The mist parted, revealing the goddess Oyaya. In her full glory, her presence was overwhelming, beautiful, and terrible at once. Beside her stood the keeper of lost truths, no longer masked. Kaito's eyes bulged. This is a trick." "No trick, child of pride," Oyaya's voice rumbled like thunder. "You have been tested and found wanting. Now you will see what you truly are." The mist around Kaito solidified into mirrors, dozens of them, each showing a different moment of his cruelty. Mocking the old woman, insulting Layo, humiliating servants, threatening villagers. "No, I am a prince. I am—" "You are nothing but pride wrapped in silk," Oyaya said coldly. Then she turned to Layo, and her expression softened. "As for you, child, you must face your own truth. Do you accept who you truly are?" Before Layo could ask what she meant, the mist surrounded her too, showing visions of a past she didn't remember. The visions came fast and overwhelming. Layo saw a royal palace she didn't recognize. She saw a beautiful queen holding a baby, and somehow Layo knew that baby was her. She saw soldiers breaking down doors. She saw betrayal and murder. She saw the baby being smuggled out in a servant's arms, hidden in a basket, taken far from the palace. "What is this?" Layo whispered. The old woman, Oyaya, stepped closer, her form shifting back to the frail, kind figure from the market. "Child, I tested you with my disguise. I needed to see if royal blood still carried royal character. 20 years ago, this kingdom suffered a great betrayal. King Adekunle's father, the old king, had a brother who should have inherited the throne. But the old king was greedy. He accused his brother of treason and had him executed." Layo's hands trembled. "The brother's wife was pregnant," Oyaya continued. "That woman was your mother. The old king ordered your entire family line to be erased from existence, but a loyal servant saved you, raising you as an orphan, hiding your true identity even from yourself." "No," Layo shook her head. "I'm just—" "You are Princess Layo," Oyaya said firmly. Rightful heir to the throne. The pendant you wear belonged to your father. It awakens only for his bloodline. Across the spirit realm, Kaito screamed, Lies! This is all lies! The mark on his body pulsed violently, spreading faster now. It covered his face, making him look like a creature of shadow rather than a man. You failed the test, Oyaya told him. Your arrogance has become your prison.
The revelation hit Layo like a physical blow. She stumbled, and the keeper steadied her. I'm a princess? Her voice barely worked. You are more than that, Oya said. You are the forgotten heir, the erased bloodline, the rightful guardian of this kingdom. She waved her hand, and new visions appeared. Layo saw her father, a kind man with gentle eyes who looked remarkably like her. She saw him speaking wisdom to villagers, settling disputes with fairness, feeding the hungry. Your father was beloved, Oya explained. The people would have chosen him over his brother. That's why the old king feared him. That's why he invented lies about treason. Tears streamed down Layo's face. My parents, they were murdered for no reason? They were murdered for the worst reason, jealousy and greed. Prince Kaito thrashed in his spiritual bonds, the mark covering his entire body now. This changes nothing. I am the current prince. The throne is mine by right. By right of murder and betrayal, Oyo corrected coldly. Your grandfather stole what belonged to Layo's father. You have inherited a kingdom built on blood and lies. The keeper spoke for the first time in this realm, its voice echoing strangely. The spirits have waited generations for the truth to emerge. The pendant was hidden, waiting for Layo to suffer enough to awaken it. Suffering reveals character. Princess Layo showed kindness when she had nothing. Prince Kaito showed cruelty when he had everything. Kaito's screams grew louder as the mark began to squeeze him, slowly pulling him into darkness. Help me, please! I'll do anything! Oya turned to Layo. The choice is yours, true heir. You can let justice take its course, or you can show mercy. Layo's mind spun. Everything she knew about herself had shattered. She wasn't an orphan, she was a princess. She wasn't powerless, she held the kingdom's true inheritance. But looking at Prince Kaito, twisted and suffering in the mark's grip, she felt something unexpected. Pity. He's been taught wrong his whole life, she said quietly. Just as I was hidden from my truth, he was raised in lies. He learned cruelty because that's what his family modeled. Oya raised an eyebrow. You would defend him after all he did to you? I'm not defending his actions, Layo said, her voice growing stronger. But I understand that hurt people hurt others. If I take revenge, don't I become like the old king? Don't I continue the cycle? The goddess studied her carefully. Wisdom and compassion, true marks of royalty. But child, understand this. Mercy doesn't mean no consequences. It means giving a chance for change. She gestured toward Kaito. His spirit is imprisoned by his own arrogance. The mark feeds on pride. Only genuine humility can stop it. But such humility is rare. Most people die before they learn it. Layo stepped closer to the suffering prince. Kaito, I know you can hear me. You have a choice. Keep holding on to your pride and let it destroy you, or release it and live. Why would you help me? He gasped through the pain. I treated you like dirt. Because someone once helped me when I had nothing, Layo replied, thinking of the old woman in the market, Oya in disguise. Because mercy given can inspire mercy learned. Oya nodded approvingly. Your choice will decide the kingdom's fate. Choose vengeance and the cycle continues. Choose mercy and perhaps a new era begins. The entire spirit realm seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Layo took a deep breath and spoke directly to the mark-consuming Kaito. I am Princess Layo, daughter of the true heir, and I claim my birthright. But I claim it not through revenge. I claim it through choosing a different path than those who came before me. The mark hesitated, its dark tendrils pausing. Kaito has been cruel, yes, but executing him would make me a killer just like the old king. So I choose differently. She turned to Oya. I ask that he be released from this realm, but not as prince. Let him live as I lived, without power, without privilege. Let him learn what it means to be humble, to suffer, to rely on others' kindness. If he can learn those lessons, perhaps he can become someone worthy. If he cannot, then let him live out his days knowing he lost everything through his own arrogance. Oya smiled approvingly. Spoken like a true queen. She turned to Kaito. You have been granted mercy you do not deserve. The mark will release you, but its price remains. You will return to the mortal world without memory of your princely life. You will work, struggle, and suffer as common people do. Only if you learn true humility will your memories return. If you learn nothing, you will remain a commoner forever. No, he tried to argue, but his voice was fading. The mark suddenly released him, but as it did, it pulled something from him. His essence, his identity, his memories. He screamed as everything that made him Prince Kaito was stripped away. Then he vanished, sent back to the mortal world. The palace bells began to ring in the distance. Something had changed. Layo felt herself being pulled backwards, the spirit realm releasing her. She blinked and found herself standing in the forest again. The crack in the earth had sealed. The guards who had come with Kaito had fled. Only the whisper of wind through ancient trees remained. Her pendant still glowed warm against her chest. Then she heard gasps behind her. She turned to find dozens of villagers gathered at the forest edge, drawn by the supernatural light show. Among them stood her former tormentors, the market vendors, the elders, the children who had thrown stones. They all stared at her pendant's glow with wide eyes. Then the air shimmered. Oya appeared before the entire crowd, not as the frail old woman, but in her divine form, radiant, powerful, unmistakable. The villagers fell to their knees in terror and awe. People of Ogunglade, the goddess's voice carried to every ear. You have witnessed the end of false pride and the beginning of restored truth. This girl you mocked and rejected is your true princess. Shocked murmurs rippled through the crowd. 20 years ago, a great injustice was done. The rightful heir was murdered and his child was hidden. But the ancestors do not forget. The spirits do not forgive betrayal. Oya's eyes flashed. Today I present to you Princess Layo, daughter of Prince Adewale, granddaughter of King Ogunglade the Wise. She gestured, and the pendant around Layo's neck exploded with light, projecting images into the air, visions of Layo's true father, the old betrayal, everything. The crowd watched in stunned silence as 20 years of hidden history revealed itself. The true heir stands among you, Oya declared. Within hours, news spread through the kingdom like wildfire. By sunset, King Adekunle and Queen Amara stood before the sacred forest surrounded by guards and advisors. The king's face was ashen as he approached Layo. "Is it true? Are you truly my cousin's daughter?" Layo met his eyes with new confidence. "Yes." King Adekunle's legs gave way and he fell to his knees. Queen Amara gasped, but the king raised his hand to stop her from helping him up. "Then I have lived my life on a throne stolen by my father," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I knew something was wrong. In my youth I heard whispers, but I was too cowardly to investigate. I benefited from the crime, so I looked away." Tears streamed down the old king's face. "Your Majesty," Layo said gently, "you were a child when it happened. The guilt belongs to your father, not to you." "But I have ruled for 30 years, benefiting from his evil." He looked up at her with haunted eyes. "The throne is yours. I will announce it to the kingdom. My son Kaito has vanished, perhaps mercifully removed by the ancestors. I have no other heir. The crown belongs to your bloodline." Layo felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. Oya appeared beside them,
visible only to those with spiritual sight. "Tell him the rest," she whispered. Layo nodded. "King Adekunle, I don't seek to destroy your family. My father, from the visions I was shown, was a man of peace. He would want reconciliation, not more bloodshed." She paused, gathering her courage. "I will accept my place as heir, but I ask that you continue ruling until your natural time comes. Use these remaining years to right the wrongs your father committed. Help me learn to lead justly. Together, we can heal this kingdom." The coronation ceremony happened on the next full moon. But it wasn't Layo being crowned queen. Not yet. It was her being officially recognized as princess and heir to the throne. The entire kingdom gathered in the palace courtyard. Vendors from the market, farmers from the fields, nobles from their estates, all came to witness history being rewritten. King Adekunle stood before them, wearing his crown but with humility in his eyes. "Today, I acknowledge a great wrong." His voice carried across the silent crowd. "My father betrayed his own brother and stole the throne. That brother's daughter stands before you now, Princess Layo, rightful heir of the kingdom." He turned to Layo, who stood dressed in royal cloth for the first time in her life. The pendant, now recognized as the royal seal of her father's line, gleamed on her chest. "I cannot undo the past, but I can choose the future. Princess Layo will be my heir. When my time comes, she will rule. Until then, I will teach her everything I know and work to restore what my father destroyed." The crowd erupted in cheers. Many villagers wept for the injustice, for the restoration, for the miracle they had witnessed. Layo looked out at them and saw with her inner sight the truth of their hearts. Most were genuinely joyful, a few were jealous or afraid. But that was the nature of people. Complex, flawed, real. In the crowd, she spotted a simple worker she didn't recognize, a young man with confused eyes who watched the ceremony without understanding. It was Kaito, now living as a commoner named Taiwo, his princely memories gone, his lessons in humility just beginning. She said nothing, simply watched him with compassion. Oya's voice whispered in her mind once last time, "You have passed every test, child. You suffered, you learned compassion. You chose mercy over vengeance. These are the marks of true leadership." As the sun set over the kingdom, casting everything in golden light, Layo understood the lesson of her entire journey. Pride destroys its owner, but humility opens the path to destiny. The old woman at the market had taught her everything she needed to know. not through words, but by allowing Layo to choose kindness when the world offered only cruelty. Now, as Princess Layo stood before her people, she made a silent promise. She would rule differently. She would remember what it felt like to be powerless, hungry, and mocked. She would be the queen her father would have been proud of. The forgotten line was forgotten no more. And in the sacred forest, the ancient trees whispered their approval, their leaves rustling with the voice of ancestors finally satisfied.
If you enjoyed our story, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.